Okay, guys, we are in our series here talking about EQ, and we have talked about the basics of EQ. So now you understand what EQ is. You have some knowledge about some of the different types of EQs that are available to you that you'll find in most DAWs. You may or may not find a graphic EQ in most DAWs. You will find it in Logic, but I'm not sure if they have one by default in Pro Tools. They definitely don't have one by default in Luna. But we've talked about the components of a parametric EQ and what everything does. And now we need to kind of get down in here and understand the different ranges, right? What does it mean? Because you'll hear people say stuff, man, I need more top end on that. There's something wrong and I'm hearing some mud in the low mids, right? Or, I want some more bottom on this, right? Or, man, I want you to add some more mids, or I hear some harshness in the upper mids, right? What in the world does that mean? And where do I go to start dealing with those things? And so that's what we're gonna break down in this video. We're gonna talk about what all those different things I just mentioned, what do they mean? Where are those different ranges, and what kind of troublesome things or positive things can I find within those different ranges? And we'll take a look and we'll use a vocal and just kind of sweep around and kind of see what these different things sound like. And ultimately what you're gonna want to be able to do is start recognizing different frequencies, right? You're going to, when I was in school, they called it a golden ear training, right? Where we had to listen to, you didn't see anything, we had to listen to different frequencies and they were starting to train us to be able to identify where that particular frequency is at in the frequency spectrum, right? Where is it in, which range is it in, right? And so that's what you're going to want to start doing. And the more that you're able to do that, it's going to speed up your process in mixing. There are certain frequencies or certain things I hear now after having years of experience where I immediately know. I might not know the exact frequency that I need to deal with, but I know where it's at. I'm like, there's something going on in that 400 Hertz range, or it's something in that 2K range ain't right. Let me go over there. And ultimately, I can find the frequency by, hearing it and knowing something's in that range. All right. So we're going to lay some foundation for that today. This is going to be good. Before we get into all this, please take a moment and like this video. Also, if you would be so kind as to subscribe to this channel, that would be awesome. We are getting very close to being able to have memberships on the channel, which is going to open up a world of opportunity for lots of other content and other things that we can have available to you. So please subscribe, because it's helping us get much, much closer. We are almost there with that. And please share the video as well. If this series is helping you, if content on this channel is helping you, please feel free to share. And without further ado, we're going to head on over and we're going to start talking about frequency ranges. This is going to be good. You're going to enjoy this, guys. Let's get into it.
McCray Music.
All right, let's deal with these frequency ranges here. Now we're going to use a vocal. In other videos, we'll get into kind of specific things that we would want to do for specific sources, like how do we EQ a vocal versus a guitar versus a kick drum? How do we get the kick and bass to play nice with each other? We'll deal with all those kinds of things. My interest in this video is just to have us get an understanding of what each frequency range sounds like. Okay. So we're going to break this down into 5 different frequency ranges. And the specific numbers of the beginning and ends of these ranges are going to differ depending on where you're taught, depending on, where you look at to get your information, but we're going to be in the ballpark, okay? So the first thing we're going to deal with is the low end, right? The low end. And the low end really is from like around 125 Hertz all the way down really to like 20. And the reason why we typically stop at 20 there is because the human ear really can't hear anything below that. But The caveat to that is you can feel things sometimes below that. So, we typically don't deal with stuff too much below 20 hertz, but sometimes you might want to play around with that a little bit because maybe you can uh, add extra feeling in your body or in the person's body, especially if there's subs in the room. Also, most speakers can't reproduce sound below 20 hertz, right? So that is the low end, all right? Let's take a look and see what the low end sounds like here on a vocal. So I'm going to just do a bell curve here, and let's just see what's going on. Matter of fact, since we're dealing with the low end, let's just do a low shelf. And let's play this and let's move this to about 125. That's good enough. And let's see what's happening if I start to boost and attenuate that frequency range. My will is killing me. I need to lay it down. 'Cause I'm finding out every time I listen to me, I lose. All right, so we see what's going on in there. A lot of low end stuff is happening there, right? Bottom end. Now, your vocal typically doesn't live down here, right? Most vocals are not going to live down here. And so this is where the debate comes in about high passing, right? So most of the times on a vocal, right, we're going to just high pass all of this stuff up to some point, right? Because we don't want to thin the vocal out. So we're going to high pass up to some point, we'll probably do a little bit more of an aggressive curve because my vocal, typically there's nothing going on down here in a vocal that we actually want to hear. As a matter of fact, you'll notice when I begin to boost this that you start to hear like breath, you start to hear rumble in maybe the microphone stand. Let's do it one more time. I'll boost it real high and you'll hear. My will is killing me. I need to lay it down. So you hear all that rumble that comes in there, right? From the breath and stuff. So we wouldn't want that there. Now, where we would want to have that low end would be on a low end instrument, right? So something like a bass, right? We're going to get activity down there. So we're going to be doing some work in there, or something like a kick drum, right? Where we want to do some work. Notice I'm boosting something in the low end here in this kick, right? So those types of things we're going to want. Most things are not going to live down there, right? So we want to be very selective of what we're boosting in here. All right, so that's the low end. The next range I want to deal with, let's go back to our bell curve. This is the low mids, and the low mids are from about 125 hertz to about 500 hertz. So let's get into a nice in-between point here. So I'm going to get right at about here is fine. And let's do a little curve here. And so this is good. Let's widen it out just a little bit and kind of hear what's going on. Make it really wide so we can hear that whole spectrum. And let's hear what's going on in these low mids. My will is killing me. I need to lay it down. 'Cause I'm finding out every time I listen to. All right, so we see that what's happening in there is those lower, warmer frequencies, right? Now, this is often where something that we call mud is gonna live, right? So when a vocal is, in this case, we're dealing with vocal or instrument, you might say, oh, that's muddy, right? What that means is we got too much of this going on. My will is killing me. All right, but we want to be careful because if we kill it too much, it's going to get too thin. Watch what happens. My will is killing me. So unless we want that kind of effect on a vocal or an instrument, right, we don't want to go too far. And so, of course, there are, lots of different frequencies in this is a fairly large range, right? So there's lots of individual frequencies we would start messing about with in that range, right? Again, if we take a look at an EQ, that is a little bit more, doing stuff. You see, I got several things happening inside. I'm not killing or boosting the entirety of that range, but in this case, I'm kind of dialing back a little bit of this 600 range right here, all right, and kind of getting some of that mud out of there, right? So that is your low mids. All right, the next range is our mid range, and this is a wider range that goes from 500 hertz all the way up to about 1.5K or kilohertz, right? So that's a fairly wide range. So let's kind of get right in here a little bit, and let's actually kind of narrow this just a hair here. And let's see what's going on. Let's widen it a little bit with this range. My will is killing me. I need to lay it down. 'Cause I'm finding out every time. All right, so that is that frequency range, right? So a lot of things that we get in there, that nasally sound is going to come from there. That what we'll call honk sometimes is going to kind of live somewhere in that range. And again, this is a very wide range, right? So we might want to, get a specific frequency in that particular range to boost it or attenuate, right? A little bit, not a lot, but a little bit of resonance or brightness might live in this range as I get closer to above 1K, get closer to 2K, right? That's where we start getting like clarity in vocals and things like that, right? So again, we're not talking about typically affecting this entire range. I'm just doing this very drastically here in this instance, this demonstration, so you can hear what's going on. All right. Then we have our upper mids, and this is from about 1.5K to 4K. So let's come up here and kind of get in the middle a little bit. I think that's good enough. Let's see what's going on in this range. My will is killing me. I need to lay it down. 'Cause I'm finding out. All right, so this is where we start getting into clarity, right? If we're talking about a vocal, right? So we start getting into clarity. There again are some troublesome frequencies in here, especially once you get in the 2K range, right? That 2.5, 2.7 hertz, right? You get some frequencies in there that are very resonant, not pleasing to the ear, very harsh, right? So we can start dealing with some of those in there as well, right? So those are the upper mids. And then we have our high end. Let's go ahead and do a high shelf. And this is from about 4K up. So let's just go over here to about 4K. And this is our high end. My will is killing me. I need to lay it down. All right, so this is the top end of our vocal, and there's some good things in there. There's some bad things in there, right? This is where we get air. We get crispness to a source. We get air, add air to a source, but this is also where things like sibilance lives. This is where also some very harsh frequencies are going to live up here as well. All right. And so again, we're going to pick and choose what specific frequencies within that range we want to boost or attenuate depending upon the source that we are dealing with. Okay. So those are our ranges. So again, just to recap, we have our low end, which is about from 20 hertz to, let's go back to a bell, from 20 hertz to about 125, right? We have our low mids, which go from about 125 to 500. We have our mid range, which is from about 500 to 1.5K. We have our upper mid range, which is from about 1.5K to 4K. And then we have our top end or high end, which is from about 4K and up. All right. And so, again, there are positives and negatives in each range. And depending on the source, there are different things that, each source is going to operate in different spaces, right? Let's just quickly look, and then we'll start dealing with this in other videos about what we would change. But let's look at some different sources here. So we have our vocal. My will is killing me. And so we see most of our vocal energy here is from like 200 hertz and up. We have some things, of course, in our low mids, and a little bit in the low end, but most of our vocal energy is higher up in the spectrum, right? Let's come over to a guitar real quick, and let's take a look at what the frequency range would look like, just what the activity would look like for a guitar. Let me go to a part of the song where the guitar is, and let's solo the guitar, and let's see what that sounded like. So we can see that the guitar is operating in a similar way as a vocal, right? Okay. So that means we're gonna have to make those play nice with each other, right? If we're mixing something. Let's take a look at something else. Let's look at a piano. I got a nice piano patch sitting here. And let's find the part in the song where the piano is. Let's solo that. All right, so again, we have a similar frequency range here with a vocal, right? So you start to see when we're mixing some of the things we have to pay attention to. We're gonna have to make some choices as to what we allow to live where. Let's look at a bass. And the bass is in on this part of the song, I'm pretty sure. So let's look at what's happening with our bass. Now, as we would expect, most of the activity is happening down here in the low mids into the low end, right? It's where most of our energy for our bass is going to be, all right? How about a kick drum? Let's take a look at our kick really quickly here. See what's happening with the kick. All right, so that's living in that similar, a bit of a wider range, right? So we have low end activity, but with this particular kick, we have also some upper mids into some highs with our kick, right? So what are we seeing here? We're seeing that everything is going to operate in its space, all right? And what we need to do is make decisions so that everything plays nice, so that when we play the whole song, it sounds nice. Let's enable all of this stuff in here real quick and see how all of that stuff, when we put all of our different EQ curves together, everything actually plays nice with each other. Travel down the road to nowhere. All right, so that's cool. So that's what we'll get into in some other videos. We'll start really digging into some other specific cases of how we get stuff to play nice with each other when they live in similar frequency ranges. And that's going to depend on the source, the specific instrument, vocal. Some guitars will live in different ranges than others. Certain samples that you use, certain piano patches might accentuate other frequencies than others, and you'll have to play around with stuff. And so we'll look at some examples of how to do that and make stuff play real nicey nice together in our next video. Okay, I hope that was helpful to you. So I got homework for you. What I want you to do, especially if you are new to this and you are kind of wrapping your head around frequencies and kind of the different ranges and where things live, here's my homework for you. Get you a source, could be a vocal, could be somebody talking, could be, instrument, whatever you want, and put an EQ plugin on that source and start sweeping around, get like a narrow band or, a narrow cue, and boost it and start sweeping around and start trying to hear what's happening in the different areas, right? You can even get like a tone generator or something like that, and then start sweeping around to start to understand what's going on. And I'm telling you, that's going to really start to help you to identify frequencies that you want to kind of deal with or that you want to enhance in whatever it is that you're working on. All right. We have much more to talk about concerning EQ. We need to start getting down into applying EQ to different sources and things like that. And that's what we're going to get into in our next video. We are going to take a look at how we can apply EQ to a vocal. What are some troublesome areas that we want to look out for when we're dealing with the vocal? What are some things that we want to accentuate? If we need more clarity, if we need less mud, if we need more air, where do I go to do those things? That's what we're going to take a look at in our next video. All right, please feel free to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you guys around in our next video. All right.